it is finally the 1st of December, so I can start reading you It's a Kid's Life Christmas Countdown. Now, this book is really, really special to me. Whenever I visit schools, children always ask me which my favourite book is that I've written, and it is so hard to answer, but this one will always hold a special place in my heart because a lot of our Christmas traditions come into the book, and my boys were really part of the ideas for it as well, and it's just a really lovely one to read in the build up to Christmas. So I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoy reading it. It's a tradition for us to start it on the 1st of December, and I thought how lovely it would be to include all of you in that this year as well. So you sit back and relax, grab a cosy blanket and a teddy, maybe a hot chocolate, and I will read you chapter 1 of It's a Kid's Life Christmas Countdown. Chapter 1. It was December the 1st. The most exciting month of the year was upon us. The month where you get to eat chocolate from your advent calendar every morning before breakfast. The month where everyone forgets about the cost of electricity as they cover the front of their houses with dazzling lights. The month where instead of being told no when you ask your parents for something, they tell you to write it on your Christmas list. The month where everyone seems to be that little bit happier and friendlier than usual. And let's not forget the very important issue of 2 whole weeks of school. The only downside of that was the 6 extra hours a day that I would have to endure my 3 younger brothers irritating me. I have been known to describe my little brothers as being more annoying than an ant nibbling on my bottom cheek. And if you have ever had the misfortune of sitting on an ant's nest, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I could hear all 3 of them right now, in fact, next door in Pocket Rocket's bedroom, feeling suspicious as to why my 8-year-old brother had allowed the highly irritating younger 2 into his bedroom without trapping them in a headlock or a double Nelson. I paused outside his door to listen. "Dear Spuds, that means you 2. I heard Pocket Rocket say to Big Spud and Little Spud. "I would love to put you on my nice list this year, but I'm afraid that you have been far too naughty lately." I heard my 2 younger brothers gasp in horror as he said this. I pressed my ear closer to the doors as I eavesdropped on them. "Don't worry though, boys," Pocket Rocket continued. "There is a way you can avoid getting a big fat lump of coal in your stocking this Christmas Eve. You can guarantee a nice lot of presents instead by doing the following things. 1. Tell Mum that it was in fact you who ate half of the box of chocolates that Mum bought for her friend and not Pocket Rocket. Now it was my turn to gasp in horror. It just wasn't true. I had seen Pocket Rocket shove half of the box into his greedy mouth last week before resealing it. Poor Mum had looked mortified when her friend had opened her present to find a half-empty box of chocolates. I was about to burst into my brother's room to demand to know what was going on when I heard Pocket Rocket announcing number 2 on the list. 2. Do both of your big brother's chores for the whole of December. I quite liked the sound of that, I thought to myself. 3. You must stop watching babyish cartoons and instead put on anything your brothers want to see. This was sounding better by the second. 4. Tell your mum and dad that Pocket Rocket deserves to have the biggest present of all of you this Christmas, as he is their favourite son. Suddenly, things weren't sounding quite so appealing. I pulled on the door handle and burst into Pocket Rocket's bedroom. He was sitting on his bed with a piece of paper in his hand. Big Spud and Little Spud were sitting silently on his rug, like obedient little schoolchildren listening to their teacher. They were gazing up at him with their big innocent blue eyes, taking in every word that he was saying. Pocket Rocket jumped when he saw me and hid the piece of paper behind his back whilst whispering, "Lots of love, Father Christmas," to our little brothers. The sneaky little thing! He had written a pretend letter from Father Christmas to trick our younger brothers into doing things for his benefit. I was about to spoil his cunning plan by telling Big Spud and Little Spud that it was actually Pocket Rocket who had written the letter and not Father Christmas, when I remembered the bit about doing both your big brother's chores. Maybe I should play along with Pocket Rocket after all. As much fun as it would be to expose him for the devious big brother he was, it would be even funnier to see my two younger brothers suffer. I imagined them struggling up the stairs with the vacuum cleaner. I had always thought how unfair it was that I was repeatedly given this chore, as they were too little to carry it, according to Mum. It was about time those two started to pull their weight. Pocket Rocket looked at me, his eyes silently begging me to play along. "Wow, that's so exciting!" I said in a big animated voice. "A real letter from Father Christmas. You two are so lucky. You had better make sure you do what he says, though. It would be horrible if you woke up to a lump of coal on Christmas morning rather than a stocking overflowing with presents." My two little brothers looked at me like I had just told them they were going to have to eat cold porridge with no syrup for the rest of their lives. They then turned to stare at each other before running out of the room shouting for Mum, presumably to take the blame for the chocolate incident. Pocket Rocket and I grinned at each other like the cats who had got the cream. "Let me see that," I said, swiping the letter from Father Christmas from behind his back. The lazy thing hadn't even bothered to write it properly. He had just put a load of squiggles instead, knowing that Big Spud and Little Spud couldn't read very well yet. "I like your style," I said to my brother, "but there's no way in the world that Mum and Dad will fall for your little plan to get the best present at Christmas. And if they are stupid enough to fall for it, I will make sure I tell them to do the exact opposite. Capiche?" Capiche means understand in Italian, and Dad was a big fan of saying this to us after giving us a lecture about something. I could see why he liked to say it now. It had a much better ring to it than understand. Pocket Rocket rolled his eyes and mumbled "okay," knowing that he had probably pushed his plan a bit too far with this request. "Come on," I said. "Let's go and ask Mum if we can decorate the tree." Pocket Rocket didn't need asking twice. He had always loved putting up the Christmas tree. All we had to do now was figure out a way to get Dad out of the house so that we could actually enjoy doing it. Dad always spoiled it by shouting at us that we were doing it all wrong. Chapter 2. "I don't see why I have to go right this second," grumbled Dad as Mum practically shoved him out of the front door. "Because Obie and Lola told me they want their daddy to walk them today," Mum replied. Obie and Lola were sitting by the front door wagging their tails in anticipation of the walk they were about to go on. Dad started to protest that A, dogs can't talk, and B, he was not their daddy, when Mum reminded him how the pub down the road was very dog-friendly. She suggested that he stop there for a pint of beer by the open fire on his way home from the walk. We all knew at that point that Mum's plan had worked. Mum knew Dad's weakness, a nice cold pint of beer. She waved him goodbye as Dad quickly hurried off down the driveway, seizing his chance to escape before Mum could change her mind. "Right, boys," she said, coming into the lounge. "Mission get the Christmas tree up without Dad interfering is underway." Last Christmas by Wham started coming out of Dad's new speaker as Mum connected her laptop to it. It had taken a while, but she was finally coming round to the fact that this wasn't 1999 anymore, and you didn't need a CD player to listen to your favourite music. She said something about listening to cassette tapes when she was a little girl once, but she gave up trying to explain what they were when we all just looked at her with blank faces like she was from another planet. "This song's rubbish," moaned Little Spud. "Put Justin Bieber on." "For the 100th time, Little Spud, it's not Beaver," moaned Big Spud. "Beaver, Beaver, Beaver," shouted a disgruntled Little Spud. "Beaver, Beaver, Beaver," retaliated Big Spud even louder. Their argument was suddenly drowned out as the soft tones of Last Christmas were replaced by Eminem belting out "Lose Yourself." Pocket Rocket had taken charge of the laptop. "Sorry, boys," said Mum as she nudged Pocket Rocket away from the controls. It's tradition. Christmas songs only whilst we put up the tree. Right, Ben, she asked, looking at me for support. I nodded, knowing that this was one thing that my brothers would not get their own way over. Mum loved Christmas as much as we did, and traditions like listening to Christmas songs as we put up the tree were important to her. Most of the songs were pretty awful, but there was something special about doing it every year that stopped me from complaining about it. Getting rid of Dad whilst we put up the tree was another Christmas tradition we had started last year after years of him taking the fun out of it. Mum always said that Christmas was about kids, and that included decorating the tree. Dad, on the other hand, always said that he didn't want a messy-looking tree sitting in the lounge for a month, and if we were going to do it, we had to do it properly. By properly, he meant that decorations had to be colour-coordinated in a combination of red and gold, and baubles had to be spaced and regimented 5 inches apart. Only traditional wooden handmade decorations coloured in red and gold were allowed to accompany the baubles on the tree, and absolutely no tinsel. Watching Mum dancing across the lounge now with tinsel wrapped around her hair, I really did wonder sometimes how on earth they got married in the first place. Let's put this one at the top, said little Spud as he scrambled onto the arm of the sofa, trying to reach the top of the tree. Mum managed to get an arm around his little waist just in time before he toppled into the tree itself. Dad would have spontaneously combusted if he had witnessed what had just happened. Little Spud giggled as Mum caught him, waving the random cardboard cutout with glitter over it in her face. That's nice, sweetheart, Mum said to him. Let's put it right here so we can all see it. Mum proceeded to dangle the bizarre-looking Christmas decoration that little Spud had made at preschool on one of the branches to the right of the tree. Pocket Rocket and I exchanged a knowing glance as he quickly removed the decoration from where Mum had just hung it. He then positioned it at a slightly less prominent angle, otherwise known as the back of the tree where no one could see it. Mum always made a huge fuss about the Christmas decorations that my brothers and I had made when we were younger. She said that we were making memories. Hanging a piece of cardboard covered in glitter on the tree was just taking things a bit too far, though. An hour, and far too many cheesy Christmas songs later, Mum carefully placed the traditional star at the top of the tree. It glistened brightly as the fairy lights shone up at it. We all stood back to marvel at our creation. I'd say that's our best effort yet, boys, said Mum. I reckon even Dad would struggle to find fault with that. Now for the best bit, shouted Big Spud as he ran into the kitchen. He grabbed a packet of Father Christmas-shaped chocolates from the worktop and ran back to the tree as fast as his little legs would carry him. He was about to tip all of them out onto the sofa when Mum quickly snatched the packet from him. Not so fast, mister, she said. You lot go into the hallway and count to 20, whilst I hide 4 chocolates on the tree for you to find. Oh, I can count to 20, grinned little Spud as he led the way out into the hallway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he slurred. Hurry up, little Spud, moaned Big Spud. Count quicker or Mum will eat the chocolates. Little Spud didn't like the sound of that. He sped up his counting as we all waited impatiently. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's not even a number, laughed Pocket Rocket. Yes, it is, exclaimed little Spud, looking offended. Let me finish. 13, 16, 17, 20. That was good enough for us. Pocket Rocket, Big Spud and I shouted 20 in unison, much to the delight of our youngest brother, who now thought his version of 20 was the correct one. We ran back into the lounge and charged over to the Christmas tree like we were competing in a 100-metre sprint. Found one, shouted Pocket Rocket as he grabbed a chocolate from a branch near the bottom of the tree. He caused a dusting of pine needles to drop to the floor in his haste. Every year, Mum would sweep up pine needles at the end of the day whilst muttering something about getting an artificial tree the following year. She always seemed to forget by the next Christmas, though, as we would all traipse to the local garden centre to choose our tree. We would then tie it to the roof of the car to bring home. This was always an exciting trip out, as it meant that the countdown to Christmas was well and truly underway. An artificial tree wouldn't have the same smell to it either. I've always loved the fresh, sweet smell of pine that drifts up into my nostrils as I walk into the room. It also acts as a very handy air freshener when Pocket Rocket takes his socks off. "And just one chocolate, Pocket Rocket," scolded Mum as he continued to look for another one on the tree. "Give your brothers a chance." Pocket Rocket slumped down on the sofa looking disgruntled as he peeled the wrapper from his one lonely chocolate. I was the next to find mine. It was buried deep in the middle of the tree, hanging behind a wooden figure of an elf wrapping a red present with a gold bow. Big Spud found his shortly afterwards as he stood on the edge of the sofa and stretched his little arm up as high as he could. Clumsily, he tugged on the tiny gold cord that hung the chocolate from the tree. Mum tutted as more pine needles fell to the floor silently. "It's not fair," groaned little Spud. "I didn't get one." "There's still one more hiding," said Mum. "Do you want your brothers to help you?" "No," he replied indignantly. He was so stubborn sometimes. "Do cold and shivery." "Do you mean hot and cold?" I asked him. "Yep, that." "Okay," said Mum, as little Spud moved his podgy arms slowly across the tree. "Cold, cold, warmer, hot, boiling hot, cold again." Dramatically, I slapped my hand to my forehead. This could go on forever. 10 minutes later, after Mum had lost the will to live, little Spud finally found his Father Christmas chocolate, hanging in between a glittery red bauble and a shiny gold star. He cheered like he had won the lottery when finally he had it in his hands. Just then, Dad walked through the front door with Obi and Lola. "Not bad," he said, nodding his head as he appraised the newly decorated tree. "Boys, it would seem you have finally learnt the art of tree decorating, except for maybe one little tweak here," he said, moving a gold bauble one branch to the left, "and maybe one little tweak there." He was about to move another decoration when we all shouted, "Dad!" Okay, he relented. "I'll leave it alone." He winked at Mum. My brothers were oblivious to it, but being the eldest, I knew that the wink meant that he would wait until we were all fast asleep tonight. He would then make a few little adjustments to make the tree perfect and hope that none of us noticed. "Anyway," he said, "I have something to show you." He opened up the local newspaper that he was holding under his arm and started reading. "Could you be the next big news reporter? Write a report on anything related to Christmas and enter our competition to not only win £50 prize money, but also have your story printed on the front page, open to all children aged 7 to 11 years old." I tickled Obi and Lola behind their ears as I listened intently to Dad. £50 prize money for writing a news report. My eyes grew wide as I thought about how many chocolate bars I would need to sell at my secret school tuck shop to make just £10, let alone £50. Only last week I had received a silver award at school for a report that I had written. It was about the inter-school karate tournament. It would have been a gold award, but apparently, according to Miss Leggett, the head of PE, the joke that I had added in was insensitive and mean. The kids at school didn't seem to think so, though. The entire hall had erupted into laughter when I described Harry Boyce screeching like an angry chimpanzee whenever he did his ki. I didn't mean to embarrass him, and I made it up to him by giving him a private ki lesson in the playground the following lunchtime. I had developed his ki from a screeching chimpanzee to a fearsome hyena. I was going for fearsome lion, but would settle for hyena for the time being. I'm not a miracle worker, you know. If I could entertain the kids at school with a report about a karate tournament, then surely I could write something Christmassy. I had this in the bag. That prize money was as good as mine. Okay, I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as I enjoyed reading it. I will read the next chapter tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, so make sure you tune in to listen, and if you want to subscribe, you'll get a notification if you click the button to let you know when it's uploaded. So I will see you all tomorrow night. Bye.